I am a market chef at Mill City Farmers Market. Market season has begun and it is time to start cooking. I did a video recently that introduced several pantry items. As many of us are cooking at home more than ever, it's really important to have all the items that you need on hand so that you can pull together different dishes, different meals without having to run out for ingredients all the time. Now, if you know me, you know that I really encourage people to take recipes and use them as guides, and then use what you have to fill in the spaces sometimes that you may not have a specific ingredient for. However, now more than ever, it's also really important to have ideas for things that you can use in multiple ways for multiple different kinds of dishes, and obviously to use what's also available in season so that we can balance things out and make delicious meals with seasonal produce and all of our other things. So I decided today I'm going to take what we can get at the market right now, turn it into a beautiful pesto and pizza topping, and then put together a pizza. So I'm going to start with a cilantro and ramp pesto, and that's going to go on top of my beautiful pizza crust that I made with flour from Sunrise Flour Mill. And this is a really simple yeasted dough recipe that we can post on the website, or I can demonstrate in another video. Very simple. Just roll it out as a flatbread. I poke 4 coals in my crust so it doesn't bubble up and get turned into pita bread. And then I've got several flat crusts that you can put anything on that you want. I've also got a few of my pantry items that are going to be part of the topping. So in addition to my pesto, which I will use toasted almonds in, my olive oil, which is a really important thing to have on hand, and garlic, I'm going to use 2 different kinds of cheese. I've got Asiago cheese, actually from our Sartori Dairy, which is in Wisconsin, and a beautiful goat cheese that you can find right now from Singing Hills or Roth Dairy, or we have a lot of wonderful local goat cheese producers. You can use any cheese that you have or any cheese that you like, or you can use no cheese at all. I'm also going to add canned garbanzo beans. So again, I talked about having canned legumes, canned beans on hand, and they add so much to so many things. So here I've got a pizza, and I definitely have some protein from my cheese, but by adding the garbanzo beans, I'm amping up the protein and the nutritional quality of the pizza by a bunch, not to mention the delicious flavor that you'll get, something a little unusual, a little bit in that Mediterranean flavor profile. So I've got my garbanzo beans, and then one other relatively unique ingredient. I need to find my hot pad. Oh well, I'll just use my apron. I have taken golden beets. Now these obviously are not available at the market yet, but they are from somebody's storage crop. I bought them at the food co-op. I've cut them up really small and just put them on the stove top in my cast iron skillet, so at a nice high heat, with olive oil, salt, and a little maple syrup. And I just let them simmer to caramelize. So that salt is going to draw the moisture out, which really helps to caramelize all those wonderful sugars in there. The maple syrup's just adding a little bit of sweetness. And I just let them go so you can see they've got this beautiful caramelization. They're tender. They're not mushy. They're going to have some nice bite to them, but they're a really nice texture. And those are also going to go on the pizza. So in terms of making my pesto, it's really simple if you have a food processor, but if you don't, you can certainly do this in a mortar and pestle, or in a blender, or if you have a small spice grinder, that will work too, or a coffee grinder if you don't mind throwing garlic in it. I'm going to start with my garlic, and in case you don't remember, I'm going to just bang on it like that and get the skin right off. Now, since I'm throwing this in the food processor, I don't need to mince it up, so I won't, but if I did, I would be using good knife technique, keeping the tip of my knife on the cutting board and gently rocking back and forth so I can get a nice fine mince on my garlic. I'm also using ramps. These are the wild leeks that are in season for a very short time, and they're in season right now, so get them while you can. I'm just going to cut the tips off of these And I'm gonna cut them down just so they can go more easily into the food processor, but I don't really need to cut them small. You wanna use the whole thing. The leaf has a lovely flavor. It's different than the flavor of the stem, but both are really delicious. So I'm gonna throw those in. I'm gonna take my cilantro and I'm gonna just cut the very ends of the cilantro off. With the stems of cilantro are really soft, I don't need to worry about getting rid of those. They'll blend up just as well as the leaves will. So I'm throwing the whole thing in, again, just roughly chopping. And I'm using about a half a bunch right now. And I'm gonna throw my toasted almonds in. So I bought these already toasted. If they weren't toasted, I would toast them on the stove top or in the oven. You wanna get those till the oil starts kind of coming to the surface, and that it also will tell us that it's ready, that it's ready to be broken down more easily, and we'll also smell that. It'll have a very strong aroma. So I'm gonna throw my toasted almonds in, about 2/3 of a cup, and then my olive oil. So really important, it needs to have enough moisture that it will blend and break down, but it also can't be too wet that it won't blend and break down. So I can always add more olive oil, but I'm gonna start with a little bit less. This is gonna be a little loud, so I'm gonna stop talking for a minute. Now you can make your pesto really thick and chunky, or you can make your pesto really thin and almost pourable. That is entirely up to you. I happen to like a little texture, almost a spreadable texture to my pesto, especially if I'm doing something like pizza. I want to bite into it, I want to taste it. So I'm not going to get it too thin, but you can do it however you want. So I'm going to take a look at it. It's a little more chunky than I would like, so processor, you can just pour your oil in while it's spinning around. And one very important ingredient I don't want to forget is the salt. As you know, salt is really important for bringing out flavor and also drawing that moisture out. It helps us absorb all of the water, both out of the vegetables and into our bodies. So it's a really important ingredient, and as long as we're adding it ourselves by cooking at home, we really don't have to worry about too much salt. I'm going to do one more spin here. And there we go. So I'm also going to just grate my Asiago. I prefer to buy a whole piece of Asiago as opposed to the grated cheese. Often the grated cheese has some kind of anti-caking agent in it, so it's an ingredient I don't necessarily want to consume. And it stays a little softer and moister, and you can grate it small or large, whatever size you want, depending on what you're making. And in terms of the goat cheese, you want to keep that in the refrigerator until just before you're using it. Otherwise, it will be so soft, it'll be hard to crumble it on something without getting it all over your hands. So just a tip on that. And then I'm going to take my pesto. I personally really enjoy pizza that is a white pizza or doesn't have a red sauce on it, but that also is up to you. So I'll use my pesto as the main base or the main sauce on my pizza. If you want, you can put red sauce on first and then add pesto as just another ingredient, another flavor element. If I were doing that, I might not add quite as much pesto as I'm adding right now, but in this case, I am spreading it pretty thick. Then I'm going to take my golden beets and sprinkle those on. So as always, one thing that we're really looking for when we're cooking is color. So when we look at food, we're consuming that food with our eyes first. So we want it to be beautiful. We want to see a variety of color and texture. So already with the pesto and the beets, it's looking really, really beautiful. I'm gonna sprinkle my chickpeas, my garbanzo beans on there. If I have olives, I can add olives. I can take some of this spinach and add it fresh, or cook it down and add it that way. I'm gonna just rip up some fresh spinach right now. If it were cooked down, I wouldn't rip it up, but since it's fresh, I want it in slightly smaller pieces because it won't wilt that much in the oven. So I've got all that. I'm gonna sprinkle that with my Asiago. You could also use Parmesan, or at Shepherd's Way, the Frisago cheese would be out of this world on this pizza. And then I'm gonna throw some of my goat cheese on top. I'll put that in the oven for about 10 minutes, and there we have it.